world, I think there's merit for that encyclopedic content. Right now, the community is not getting it. And the problem right now is that they're not getting it because as content creators, you can't go out. We are not fundraisers, but we need money. And as we go out and speak to people, we waste our time in terms of content creation. So जो थोड़ा बहुत आ रहा है काम कर रहे हैं, but by now scalability should have happened, but we struggle with it, right? But that's fine. We feel if it's meant to be done, it will be done. Having said that, sorry I've taken more time, but you left it on me to introduce versus you guys introducing. So we'll start the presentation now. Is that okay? Okay. All
It's
right.
perfect. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you for this introduction.
So I've been asked to present today Think Like a Sage, Act Like a Leader, Purpose-Driven Leadership. This presentation was, I got an opportunity to present this at the Harvard University in the India conference in the year 2025, February. I was invited there. And so this, of course, we were invited to present at the Harvard Business School. I don't know why they invited me, but they were inviting the other people also from the India, this thing. And the question then was, how do I map the work that we are doing to resonate with the business school? And that's why this presentation was made think like a sage, act like a leader. What do our saints, the Indian saints, tell us on this aspect so that there's a direct relevance to the community that's studying there, right? So purpose-driven leadership. Okay, before I start, I'll let this video do the talking. Tell me if you can hear the voice, and then I'll come back.
Yes.
Can you?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
During the medieval period, the Indian subcontinent was experiencing a political, religious, and social downturn. Caste divisions, ritualism, oppression, and hierarchy had corrupted society. In this background, two parallel reformist movements, Bhakti and Sufi, emerged in the early 10th century to weave together the ripped social and religious fabric of society. This progressive force gave impetus to experiential wisdom over theoretical knowledge. They voiced opinions in the vernacular, incorporating local and foreign languages. Their mission was to rejuvenate society with the spirit of oneness in diversity. To extend the reach of this awareness, Guru Nanak laid the foundation of committing the oral tradition to document through scribing, so that this reality could transcend generations.
Okay. So that's just to give the background and context, and I build upon that. Saints come, noble souls come, have been coming for ages, and they will continue to come. We can't say that this is the period that they stopped coming. Knowledge, wisdom will keep evolving. But the question that we need to ask is, has anything changed in the world? Yeah, nothing has changed. And nothing will change. We are humans. Nothing will change. Don't have any hope in this world. Seriously. Okay? So I'm starting with a very negative pitch out here. We go to temples, gurdwaras, masjid, churches, go for spiritual talks, do whatever. Nothing has changed, and I'm being a pessimist out here. Nothing will change as long as you're a human. So, what's the point of discussing this? I remember when I was in American Express, the CEO that time was Ken Chenault. And I was in Singapore, and once he had come to Singapore. And someone asked him a question in a town hall as to how do you define leadership? Because I said this is going to be ending in the situational leadership message. How do you define leadership? He gave a beautiful answer that applies to today's presentation. He says leadership is nothing but just anchoring on two words: define reality. A good leader will be the one who has the ability to define the current reality, what you're seeing today. I've just defined the reality, how pathetic the world is right now. You know, define the reality, but at the same time, give hope. I just said nothing's going to change, but you have to still give hope. A leader is that person who can define a situation if someone comes to that person, define where we are today, and leave an anchor of hope because situationally, the person whom you are trying to lead will find the answers themselves. You don't need to guide, you don't need to spoon feed the person. The situational leadership will result in motivating the person in their own domain to find the answer. So that's why defining reality and giving hope is what also Gurbani does. If you look at the verses in the Gurbani, it's a structure which is every Shabad has a Rahau line. The Rahau line is defining the reality that we're talking about, the anchor, the topic. Sorry, it's not defining let me step back. The Rahau line, the subject of that discussion, is the headline as to what we are discussing. Every other line is the situation that we are encountering that is being explained, how the human mind is acting or what is the challenges and so on and so forth. And in the end, where the hope is left is where Kabir Sahib will say or Nanak Sahib will say, Kahe Nanak, Kahe Kabir. That's where you're leaving a hope and an action and an anchor to go forward. So defining reality, a subject is Rahau. Defining reality is the body of all the other lines, and a hope that you leave is in the anchor in the anchor line of in the end when you say Kahe Nanak, Kahe Kabir or so and so. Clear? So there's a defining reality, giving hope. So we look at it. I mean, well, Ken Chenault is saying in the town hall about what the leadership model is. Well, our scriptures have incorporated this model centuries back. So there was a far modern thought in this whole process. So then, as per that video that we talked about, now look at it. When Guru Nanak is in the smack center of the Bhakti and Sufi period, although he's anchored into a faith right now, and we have anchored him into a faith, but he was a man on a quest. Very few people understand. I mean, it becomes hard in a religious domain to actually rationalize and tell people. A lot of people say he traveled to the world to spread the message, to give the right thought. Sorry, he's a person who himself is saying, Jab lag duniya rahiye nanak, kich suniye, kich kahiye. Learn, listen to something and impart. So he's on an experiential wisdom, interactions, which is taking him. As much as you're imparting, you're also learning and incorporating. It's a situational, it's an experiential wisdom, right? And he's in the smack center of the Bhakti and Sufi period. 1200, Namdev ji, Joydev ji, Ravidas, Farid ji are there in the 1200s. Guru Nanak is born 1469. Bhakti period runs, or the Sufi period runs till about 1700. So he's right in the smack center. At a time when there's no printing press, there's no internet, information flow is so hard. Yet you see Guru Nanak when he travels to Baba Farid's place in Pakpatan, he makes the attempt to actually, he not attempt, he actually starts writing down the verses, the kalam, the shabads of Baba Farid. Why would he do that? Let's ask that question. Why would he do that? Think about it. In a time when information and especially spiritual wisdom would only be passed down through oral traditions, no one would write it. You have to sing, you have to sing, period. If you have to read, you have to read, period. No one would document it. But yet he makes the documentation. And that documentation passes down to the second guru, third guru, fourth guru, fifth guru. And at the fifth guru's time, no one knows how it happens. But look at the intent. There's no internet, there's no printing press. What Guru Nanak sows is the seed of documentation. Guru Arjan, the fifth guru, brings it together with the writings of 14 additional saints of the same Bhakti Sufi period from Bengal, Joydev, Kabir Sahib from UP, Ravidas from UP, Namdev from Maharashtra, Dhanna from Rajasthan, and of course, Baba Farid's writings have already been incorporated by Guru Nanak, who collated them. So I often say that the India that we talk of today is a creation post-partition. The Bharat as we talk about today, or we talk about Akhand Bharat and all these patriotic stuffs that we talk about. I mean, the integration of the cultural and spiritual Indian subcontinent happened in the land of the five rivers in the house of Nanak through this humble act of bringing together the writings of diverse saints and putting it together. Between Nanak and the additional saints, the Bhakti saints, you're talking about something close to 1,653 Shabads. I'm not talking about the other Sikh Gurus. The Granth Sahib has more than 5,000 Shabads, just between the two of them. Two bodies, that is, the Bhakti period saints, 15 of them, and Nanak, 1,653 Shabads. So, why were they trying to integrate the localized messages into this large repository? Why were they doing it? Diversity, inclusivity was a part of it. And today, when I look at a lot of people in the community, divisiveness is on the rise, hate is on the rise. We have to go back to the root and understand what were they trying to do. And I think the message is distorted because we made this Ekomkar into God is one and is distinct from you. It's not that God is one, it is everything is one. Ekomkar is the creative, destructive, and sustaining energy that takes a form, Akar. The one before that means it's intertwined into oneness. And because you made it as a distinct Abrahamic thought of being different and distinct, I think all the problems start from there. I think that's what we're trying to say out here. Okay, so this is what I've just explained to you. 13th to 14th to 15th century, different saints on it. And look at it from the vast spread of the Indian subcontinent. But interestingly, amongst these saints, Guru Nanak, and I'm not talking about the other Sikh gurus, I'm not talking about the parts. I'm just talking about Guru Nanak and the various 15 Indic saints. You find that there are some commonalities between them. If you look at the Bhakti period starts around 10th to 11th century out of South India. But yet they are not included in the scripture. Now, I am only giving you hypothesis. I have no idea why they're not included, but I can see a commonality out here. The saints that are included out here who are named, they were all family oriented. They were all economic contributors. In their own ways, they were contributing economically because Kabir Sahib was a Julha. He was weaving the cloth. Ravidas ji was a chamar who was dealing with leather. Nanak, in his own ways, did a storehouse keeping till a certain age, and at the age of 32, he starts his journey, and then he comes back, and then he becomes a farmer. Yes, in a certain phase of his life, he was in a quest. We all are actually find in our lives a period where we are on a quest for something, but he was an economic contributor. So they all are family oriented, they are economic contributors, and all of them, unlike some of the South Indian saints who were primarily all Brahmins, many of them were unmarried, and many of them were just in devotion for God. If you take the God centric aspect out of this whole thing for a moment, of what we have made it, because we forget when Kabir Sahib says, or Ravidas ji says, Ravidas says, Tohi mohi mohi tohi antar kaisa. Kabir Sahib is saying, Khalak 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 mein kalik. Farid Sahib is also saying the same thing. Nanak is saying Ek Onkar. They all are saying that the entire creation, Khalak Khalak, creator creation, is the one ecosystem. There's nothing as separate from this inside it, right? So when they're saying that, they are they are not advocates of this Abrahamic God concept that we have created out of our translations right now. If I was to simply separate the God concept and just look at them as to what were they trying to do, I see a commonality, which is a third point, which is very important, is that they were all human rights advocates. And these human rights advocates needed the lut of the soti of faith to convey their point. And somewhere I think we are missing that point. Kabir Sahib talks very, very blatantly about the perils in the society. Nanak Sahib is only creating a revolution of equality. And we've missed that point out, and we've created something which is not what they were standing for. So, three things: family orientation, economic contributors, and human rights advocates is what I would say. Okay, so what was the path of this Indic saints? And I'm actually going to bring this something that I have learned in my own life, having worked for 25 years in the corporate world, gone through the rigmaroles of education, higher education, had a successful career, left it, went to a different path. But then Nanak says, Jan Nanak ek khel kathan hai, kinhu gurmukh jana. Gurmukh here is not as we made Gurmukh like a Sikh form of, bada dadi pai hai, case pai ne. Gurmukh, Bani the andar wo Gurmukh nahi hai. Gurmukh is the intent, the intellect oriented towards the wisdom. Gur is the Gur, by the way, is not even Guru, by the way. Gur nu agar tusi rarre de thalle onkar nahi hai, it means the मूल फंडामेंटल स्टाफ वो कहते हैं ना अगर किसी ने म्यूजिक अगर किसी ਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਮਿਊਜ਼ੀਸ਼ੀਅਨ ਜੋ ਸਿਖਾਉਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਸਮ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਪੂਰੀ ਤਾਲ ਦੀ ਸਮ ਤੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਗੁਰ पे मारा ਸਮ ਤੇ ਲਿਆ ਕੇ ਮਾਰਦਾ ਹੈ ਰਾਈਟ ਉਹ ਮੇਨ ਚੀਜ਼ ਹੈ ਠੱਕ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਕੀ ਹੈ ਗੁਰ ਉਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋ ਰਹੀ ਗੁਰ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਖੜੇ ਹੋ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ ਉਹ ਸਾਰਾ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਹੈ ਏਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਵਨਨੈਸ ਪੂਰੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਵਨਨੈਸ ਹੈ ਬਸ ਦੈਟਸ ਇਟ ਜਦੋਂ ਉਸ ਵੱਲ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਓਰੀਐਂਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਹੀ ਬੰਦਾ ਸਮਝ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ ਜਨ ਨਾਨਕ ਇੱਕ ਖੇਲ ਕਠਨ ਹੈ ਕਿਨਹੂ ਗੁਰਮੁਖ ਜਾਣਾ So, what I've understood is that I depict this as two hurricanes. Life is a hurricane. The day a hurricane is not there in life, you're dead. Right? It's an evolution. So there's one hurricane which is taking the energy from the root to a spiraling upwards of desires. There's nothing wrong with desires. I have very, very strong desires to complete the work I have undertaken right now. And if you don't have the desire, you will not be actually challenging or undertaking such challenging tasks of going into socio-politically and geopolitically sensitive areas and trying to take risk on your life. When I did the docu-series, me and my wife, our kids went through a turmoil, our two daughters, because we had actually taken an insurance policy not knowing that we'll come back or no. Or with the desire ही है ना. It's just a different form of desire. But when I was in American Express, that desire was of a bank balance. And I'm talking about that desire out here. That desire is always spiraling. यार एक और कार ले आना. You know what? Let me make another million. Right? Let me have some more safety. Let me have another gadget. That's the desires I'm talking about. The reality is it'll never subside. You'll have your first million. I remember when I left India in 1999, I went to with American Express with a clear objective. 1 year I'm going to serve. I'm going to make 35 lakhs. That was my target, and I'm going to come back. I'm still sitting here, and one of my friends used to laugh. कि यार अमरदीप तेरा ना जाए ना obituaries निकलेगा and I say now yeah you were right it's going to come out in the obituary outside only because that's too far away right so he says where you are and those days I moved in Hong Kong he says you will die in Asia only you are not going back that's the desire but to do what you're doing you have to change your mindset and it's not easy. When I changed my mindset, I didn't change it. I may think I changed it, but something happened in my life. All I know is I was doing something else. And it's like, do you breathe? No, you don't breathe. Breath comes. And when you are just doing in the moment the right thing from the age of 17 years onwards, which we'll talk towards the end of this presentation, there's a time when the energy thinks that you are now ready. And when it thinks you are ready, now I can look back in 2014 when it shut the door for me in the corporate world. I was disoriented. The phone stopped ringing. The paycheck stopped. A lot of challenges happened. But I think now when I look back, it has been a very fulfilling last 13 years because what happened was I understood soon that I don't need more than what I have to put the food on the table. The day I understood that, now when I look back, there is not a single project that doesn't get accomplished. I'm not trying to be egoistic out here, but these are massive projects. And they have been successfully completed. They are not small projects like ये छोटा दे कर ले, छोटा कर ले. They are massive projects, right? Generational stuff. But they're getting done. There are enough challenges. Barriers they बड़े ने. खेल तो अजय भी कठिन है. खेल तो रहेगा. जब तक till I'll be living and I'll be breathing the last one. Who knows how I'm going to die? किब जाना किब मरेंगे, right? Comes in good money. How do I know what I'm going to die, right? What challenges I'll face at that age, whether I'll be struggling in a hospital or what, the challenges will be there. So I don't have a crystal ball. But what I can do is in the moment is reverse that hurricane into what it is down here, focus on the needs, because that's all you need to do. But I'm not suggesting to anyone that give up what you're doing. I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting कि कल तो तुसी संत बन जाओ. No, it's a recipe for disaster. Don't even think about doing it. This world will not allow you to survive. And there's a model inside this when you look at it, what the Indic saints are saying. So don't jump after this presentation and saying, oh, Amardeep did this, so let me also give up. No, it's a recipe for disaster. Don't even think about it. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll talk about this moving forward now. So the fact remains, we all know, it's not rocket science. The world is transient. The nature of existence is transience. जो कल होया और जो पिछले सेकंड च होया वो हुण नहीं हो रहा कल दा सानू पता नहीं वो कहते ना भूतकाल पुराना वो भूतकाल क्यों कहते ने वो पुराने पास ਵਿੱਚ चला गया वो भूत हो गया देयर ओनली मेमोरीज नाउ भूत हैगा वो मेमोरीज टाइम ਤੇ ਅਜੇ ਕਾਲ ਦਾ ਹੋਣੇ ਹੈਗਾ right so nature is transient. So let me just play what Kabir Sahib says. And then I'll just, if I take a 10 second, I'm just getting a glass of water. You listen to this and I'll be back, right? Okay. हाँ जगत चला जाए यहाँ कोई न रहिया चले गए कुंभकर्ण और रावण चले गए राम लखन चारो भैया जगत चला जाए यहाँ कोई न रहिया तो कुंभकर्ण चला गया रावण चला गया सब चले गए चारों पहिया चले गए रामायण रामायण दे दशरथ ऐसा अपना भरत वगैरह सारे चले गए सो जगत ट्रांजिएंट है कोई नहीं रहेगा एंड दिस लास्ट शॉट आउट हियर इज वाराणसी यू सीइंग बिहाइंड मणिकर्णिका घाट एवरीवन इज गोना गो देयर that's the reality ultimately we are here just for a few years someone's here for 10 years someone's here for 90 years but we are only here for a few moments but everyone's going to go to that ghat it's all transient so why bother about anything the fact is it's transient but it is existing you cannot deny it it's transient but it is existing so should you negate it Nanak and the Indic saints are not teaching about giving up. As I said, they were all family oriented. They were economic contributors and they were social reformers. All throughout their life, they did fight on all these aspects. Oh, gal दूजी है कि we have made them into boxed into religions and we can't think beyond that, Look at their lives. The docu-series, if you can understand Nanak, that's what he stands for. Any of the words you read of Kabir Sahib, वो तो लाठ उठा के गाल करते हैं. So this particular Shabad is very close to me. And Prerna, since you have reached the 19th episode, you'll soon reach the episode number 22 in Afghanistan. So this was filmed in the Kurram region. Kurram region is on the Pakistan side and the Afghanistan side, the region where the Durand line divides it. And on the Pakistan side, you call it as the Parachinar. And on the Afghanistan side, you basically call it as Kurram region. So it's the Pashtun tribes that are divided by the Durand line that the British drew. Otherwise, the same culture on both the sides. And in this, the mountains that you'll see, the ranges, that's the border between the two countries. And this is the place which is a small place and not much of the community is left. And those who reach episode 22 will find the entire narrative. I don't need to go into that. But the Shabad here is very, very touching. This place, there's no community left. But yet they used to. Even now, those last few people have also left Afghanistan. But in 2019, when we were filming, some of them used to come once in a year and just maintain it like this. From Kabul, they would come. And why this was important? Because this place was built in the memory of the so-called memory. There's so much of confusion in the narratives. That's why I say, those who say that, a lot of people ask me about, so when I look at, the modern day reels that are being made, and I look at it, Guru Nanak is being sent left, right, center, everywhere. What's the basis? Anywhere you make a Gurdwara, 10 years later, you just put a story there and suddenly Guru Nanak appears there, right? The fact is, Guru Nanak has written nothing about his life. He's only given you verses. You can understand his mind. And that's what we are attempting to do in the docu-series. But yet we are making a narrative. And the narrative is based on the text written 70 years after his life, up to 150 years. I have no idea where Guru Nanak has traveled. I often say, I have zero idea. I'm trying to understand his mind. But I'm making it based on a text that's written between 70 years after his life, up to 150 years of his life. Period. ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਕੋਈ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਗਏ ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਗਏ ਯਾਰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮਨਾ ਲਓ ਆਪਣੇ ਆਪ I have no idea. I don't even know if that what I've made is right or wrong, but I've gone to these sites and I've collated something and given you of a value through which hopefully you can understand his mind. That's it. So as we were filming in this region, this narrative, one of the narrative that says is Guru Nanak's lifelong companion Bhai Mardana passed away in the Kurram region. Where is Kurram region? This is the Kurram region. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Para-Chinar border on the Afghanistan side. And the community has made a small Gurdwara out here. So we are anchoring on this, and this Shabad that's being sung out here is about the existentialism out here. And that's why I'm putting it here. But at the same time, there's another narrative, interestingly, of Guru Nanak and Bhai Mardana traveling up till Kartarpur. And we have no idea because one text says that he passed away in Kartarpur. The other text says he passed away in here. So you'll find in episode 23, we say that one narrative says here, and then we take the two of them along, and then we finally end by Mardana's narrative in Kartarpur, not knowing that where actually he passed away. But we've taken that objectively. But what out here is very important is the Shabad. So I'm going back to the fact is the world is transient. Dunya chal rahi hai, khatam ho rahi hai. But do we become negated in our mindset कि यार सब कुछ खत्म है तो सब काम करना छोड़ दो सब कुछ छोड़ दो नहीं Guru Nanak is giving a very profound message of existentialism. Anyone who's read any of the Western philosophy, Nietzsche and all these people, they are active participants. They're talking about the human being a Superman. The Superman word that you see of the Maverick or your kitty picture, any of these Bollywood kitty picture about our daughter loves it, but all these are characters made, but Superman is a Nietzsche's concept, right? So existentialism पे है ही है. So इत्थे गल आंदी है. Guru Nanak Sahib says, "हम आदमी हाँ एकदमी." Sometimes you break the words. एकदम, dam is a breath. एकदम आया, ता करके मैं आदमी हाँ. I exist because I've taken one breath. The next breath does not come, I will not exist. Now you break the word हम आदमी आया दम आदमी एक दम आया ते ता करके मैं आदमी हाँ. So हम आदमी word itself is made up of आया and dam. So हम आदमी हाँ एक दमी. That's what life is between existence and not existing. One breath. But he's giving a very powerful message out here. So listen to it.
Guru Nanak mentions that life and death is dependent on just one breath. Being unaware of when one's last breath will occur, one should strive to utilize each breath to the best use.
हम आदमी हाँ एकदमी मोहलत मोहत न जाना नानक बिन वैत सरे वो जाके जी पराना अंधे जीवना विचार देख केते के दिना केते के दिना.
The simple ji gal hai, you are existing here only for one breath. Submit yourself to the will of nature. Nature ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਾਇਨਾਤ ਹੀ ਤੇ ਰੱਬ ਹੈ. You're a part of that. You're not anything different. ਉਹ ਪੇੜ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਹੈ, ਪੌਦਾ ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਹੈ, animal ਵੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਹੈ. You are yourself. Your friend is also there. Submit to the will of nature. But he's saying, andhe jivana, oh blinded person, contemplate. The problem that I have also in the interpretations right now is we made it so Abrahamic centric, ek omkar sat naam. ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ God is one, true is his name. Oh, ਪਹਿਲੀ ਗੱਲ ਯਾਰ, why is his? Why not her name? What's the gender inside it, right? True. So how does it matter to me if true? These are the translations we are showing. True is his name or false is his name. How does it matter to me? Ramu है name ki Shamu है name, right? The fact remains, अगर इसको दूसरी तरीके से देखो, what Nanak is saying is, Naam is a self-reflection, contemplation, because your situation is different to my situation. कोई कहे कि तुसी तस्बीह पकड़ के नाल 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 करे जाओ. Well, it may be for someone, but the fact is, Naam is a situational contemplation, reflection into the situation that your life is. Because you have to find your own answer. Self-empowered leadership is the end of this gal karange. Nanak is talking about that. So you have to find the answers to your life situation. Naam is a reflection on this reality, Sat, on this reality. That Omkar, that energy that creates, sustains the Trinity and destroys. ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਸਰਗੁਣ ਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਿ ਦਾਂਗੇ Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. But not ਨਿਰਗੁਣ ਰੂਪ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਹਾਂਗੇ that energy which is creating, sustaining, destroying. ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਆਕਾਰ ਲੈ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਫਾਰਮ ਲੈ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ, ਉਹਦੇ ਅਗਰ ਵਨ ਲਗਾਉਣ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਪੂਰੀ ਕਾਇਨਾਤ ਉਸ ਦੇ ਇੱਕ ਨਾਲ, ਉਸ ਗੁਰ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, ਉਸ ਮੂਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜੁੜੀ ਹੋਈ ਹੈ. That to me makes sense. Because if I've understood that, then I become nirpo. I become nirvair. It's not that God is without fear, God is without enmity that we are creating in our translation. Then why are we fighting the wars in Iran and Iraq and right now what's going on? There's so much of fear, there's so much enmity. How do I become fearless? How do I become this thing? So gal ye aa rahi hai ki you have to be contemplating on the situation of your life situation. Andhe us de utte vichar kar. So this is existentialism is there. Sorry, transient nature is there. दुनिया चल रही है, but उधर ਤੁਸੀਂ बैठे हो, you have to contemplate and be a part of that, right? And that's what is going to make you evolve and move forward. That's what he's talking about. So you have to be a responsible agent. ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣਾ contributions ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਨੇ. That's what is the message out here. Now, ਗੱਲ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਏਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਉਹ ਆ ਜਾਂਦੀ ਕਿ ਗੁਰ ਕੀ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜੋ ਗੁਰ ਮੁੱਦਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹ oneness ਹੈ. ਹੁਣ ਉਸ ਦੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ, so for those who might think I just gave that background about how the diversity and inclusion from the entire subcontinent came together in the lands of the five rivers. The beauty would be if we start projecting this aspect of the inclusivity and diversity versus saying this is just boxed and locked into the Sikh domain. That you're limiting it because the vision was too big out here. And if for anyone who thinks this guy who's going to speak out here, he's a Sikh because he got a beard, no, he's a Ravi Dasia. Ravi Dasia from UP, from one of the villages of UP. He does not know a word, head or tail about Punjabi. And listen what he talks about, because now I'm going down from Nanak to the various Indic saints and I'm going to build this whole thing about what self-empowered leadership is. So first you have to understand the oneness, right? What is he talking about?
जी मेरा नाम शिव पूजन दास नाम है। बाबा रविदास जी का मंदिर में मैं रहता हूँ। इस तरह का रविदास जी का भाव था, तो ही मोही मोही तो ही अंतर कैसे। वही की बात तो बोले हैं कि आप में और मेरे में क्या अंतर है। आप जल तरंग है तो मैं जल तरंग का लहर हूँ।
Bhagat Ravidas saw no difference between the creator and the creation, and hence he also saw the entire human race as one.
I would say if I could go back, I would change this word, but it's done. No, it's not human race. Entire creation is one, right? But we made that error of using that word, but it's all right. So the oneness, the main thing out here, that's the good that we're talking about. And I want to take a moment out here to talk about something that's because I'm a person from the field research. And I'll tell you how things evolve, how the messages get distorted, how we forget the root, right? देखो सिंपल जी मैं ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਗੱਲ ਦੱਸਦਾ narrative ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ how many people know the name of the original name of the place called Kartarpur that we all talk about today? I've not come across anyone. If you see the episode number 23, you will find in that we've actually mentioned the name coming from the Siha Upal Janam Sakhi, wherein Kartarpur was a name that was given much later. Where Nanak formed his commune after his travels was a place called Jammanwali. The fact is that Jammanwali word is lost. How narratives gets lost, right? ਤੇ ਹਰ ਚੀਜ਼ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ narratives ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਹੁਣ ਮੈਂ ਤੇ ਦਿਖਾਣਾ ਚਾਹਨਾ what I'm a person by the way who's had a opportunity given by the divine energies to travel all along the Indus region from Karachi, Balochistan up till Kailash Mansarovar and both sides of the border and both sides of the country, Afghanistan, India, Pakistan. In phases, I've traveled across the whole of Indus region. So I have had this opportunity to observe things with a criticality. I'm a field guy. And I was born in Gorakhpur in UP. I was born close to the place where Kabir Sahib left his body, Maghar. So I've observed a lot of things as a kid from that side also. I'll tell you what there is out here. So when you're talking about Ek Onkar, it's coming from, देखो Onkar जो है ना, Onkar word also comes Omkara, it's coming from that Nirgun tradition of creative energy, sustenance energy, destruction energy. When it takes a form, आकार लेंदी है, ਉਹਦੇ ਅੱਗੇ ਇੱਕ ਇਹ ਤੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਤਾ ਹੈ in the Sikh thought, Ek Omkar, what Nanak has said. He is saying, if you see on the right hand side at the bottom, he's reinforcing oneness on that Omkar by putting one, that everything is intertwined into one. That's what Guru Nanak is doing. But the two words that are interesting out here is Om as we see today. That's on the left hand side. That is a Gangetic Om. What we have inherited today, everywhere we use this Om. This Om is used in the Gangetic belt. I have traveled across the ruins of Gurdwaras and temples across the Indus region. जिथे सारी communities छड़ के आ गए ने, the Om written on, and they are there in my books also, you can see it, right? The Om written on these ruins is always the center one in the Indus region. There are some people who still use this, but the Om written is this. And interestingly, I was once speaking in Calgary, and there was this guy who got up and he says, Amardeep Singhji, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਹੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਹੋ. And he opened his shirt and he took out and said, ਮੇਰੇ ਦਾਦੇ ਨੇ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ, ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਸੀਗੇ. And that was the center Om. What I'm trying to say is the Trinity, the three energy, is what it is showing, right? All I'm trying to say is the two forms of Om. One is the Gangetic Om and one is the Indus Om, which the history has made us been harsh on us and we've lost it. Both are showing diversity. कि पूरी कायनात बड़ी बड्डी है, but it's Guru Nanak is putting a one before that. And say, yes, it's a very large diversity, but it's intertwined into one. Everything is intertwined into one. That is not monotheism. I'm reinforcing this out here. That's not monotheism. मोनोथीज्म जो असी बनाता है कि अगर तुम विकीपीडिया के अंदर देखो गुरु नानक के ऊपर गुरु नानक इज द फाउंडर ऑफ द मोनोथीस्टिक फेथ एंड आई से यू जस्ट गॉट इट रॉन्ग गुरु नानक इज नॉट द फाउंडर ऑफ अ मोनोथीस्टिक फेथ मोनोथीज्म होता है कि God is different. You need a son of God, and the creation is different. Creation and God cannot be one thing. रविदास जी कह रहे हैं तो ही मोही मोही तो ही अंतर कैसा so everything is one and that's the point that I'm trying to make out here is if you have to use the word in English because we started talking in English these days right so अगर use करना है ना move away from monotheism because if you're planting the wrong thought in the children's mind they are going to grow up with that divisive thing because you made God as a separate concept right so use the word monism that's more clearer if you don't believe it go and search the dictionary the difference between monotheism and monism you'll understand okay so all I want to go down to it I'm going to skip this one is actually let me show this let me not skip this so you'll see this Prerna, when you come to episode next one, episode 20, when you see it, you'll find this in the end. Observe it very clearly. Very with a lot of details out here. So this is the Balochistan Shakti Peeth, which is in Pakistan. Guru Nanak goes to all these places to have dialogues. And in the Shakti Peeth uh, at Hinglaj, which the Muslims call as Nani Ka Hajj, and the Hindus call as Hinglaj Mata Ka Mandir in the caves. There is, in Guru Nanak's time, it used to be a Shaivite shrine, and a lot of Nath yogis used to be there. And wherever Shaivite shrines were, Guru Nanak used to go and have dialogues with them, with the Nath yogis, right? I mean, feel free to remove your mute button, but I would like to ask a question. Does anyone know what a Shakti Peeth means? So if no one has removed the mute button, I'm assuming no one knows.
Is it related to Parvati's body parts fallen on the earth?
Okay. So that's the literal meaning. Whenever a narrative, Puranic tales, you can ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਕੰਡਮ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਠਾ ਕੇ ਹਿਨਾਕਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਟੇਲ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਡਮ ਕਰ ਦੋ ਪ੍ਰਹਲਾਦ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਡਮ ਕਰ ਦੋ ਅੱਜਕੱਲ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਬਿਮਾਰੀ ਹੋ ਗਈ ਸਭ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਡਮ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ ਧਰੂ ਦੀ ਟੇਲ ਨੂੰ ਕੰਡਮ ਕਰ ਦੋ ਡੀਪਰ ਮੈਟਾਫੋਰਿਕ ਮੀਨਿੰਗਸ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਝੀਏ ਰਾਈਟ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਇੰਡਿਕ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਤੋਂ ਆਏ ਨੇ ਦੇ ਆਰ ਟੈਲਿੰਗ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਇਜ਼ ਟੈਲਿੰਗ ਸਮਥਿੰਗ ਬਿਯੋਂਡ दैट Gurbani is not negating it. If it had to negate it, it would not include it. But it's trying to tell us some deeper meanings. And somehow we are missing the points out here. So, Shakti Peeths, you're right, Lamba Sahab. But let me explain the metaphoric meanings. देखो, attachment. It's about attachment. शिवा दे दो रूप ने शिवा एक रूप है मलंग जा in his youth. Malang, he cares less about anyone. Yeah. That's his narrative. He gets married to Sati. Sati is his first wife. And because he's careless in his attitude, Malang, and those days, kadi shamshan katte jaake reh raha hai, kithe reh raha hai, a gori type, right? And at one point, and then he was not very, probably the narrative goes that he was not very mindful of his wife either. And she passes away. And ਉਹਨੂੰ ਝਟਕਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ and his second transformation happens when he marries Parvati after that but ਜਦੋਂ ਝਟਕਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਾ ਉਹਨੂੰ so this is a human life ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਚੀਜ਼ ਨਾਲ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਤਨਾ ਅਟੈਚ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਹੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇਗਨੋਰ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਤੇ ਝਟਕਾ ਲੱਗਿਆ so he carries the body of Sati on his shoulders and he would not give it up he just keeps walking on so metaphoric meaning is he realizes and he attaches himself to that. Pali is attached to something else, he cares less. Now he attaches to Sati and he puts her around his shoulder and he keeps walking around, right? Not refusing to give up her body. Then the energies, the divine energies, whatever you call Vishnu or whatever, कहते यार तू चलना है तो आप लोग खत्म नहीं कर सकता, right? So he throws his chakra and the chakra comes and splits Sati's body parts. When it splits the body parts, different parts of the body fall down at different places. That's the narrative. It's like saying dharmic places baniya ne, right? Kide her head falls down at a place, her breast falls down, a place, her thigh falls down. ਇਹ ਸ਼ਕਤੀ ਪੀਠਾਂ ਬਣ ਜਾਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਜੇ ਸ਼ੈਵਾਈਟ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੰਨਿਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਹੁਣ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੰਨੋ ਜਾਂ ਨਾ ਮੰਨੋ, ਗੱਲ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। I'm not here to try to promote Shaivite tradition. I'm just telling you a Puranic tale, right? Guru Nanak's message is beyond that. Okay? So, Hinglaj Shakti Peeth de andar, there is certain portion of her body parts that fell out here in the Shakti Peeth came, but today it's in Pakistan. Why I'm trying to tell you is that diversity and inclusion ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਅੱਜ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ narratives ਬਣ ਗਏ ਨੇ, they're so fragmented, they're so divisive at times. When you do a narrative like what we've done, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਪਾਟ ਨੇ ਨਾ, ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਮਾਈਂਡ ਖੁੱਲਣਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਯਾਰ, what have we inherited and what are we passing down? Is it that what we want to pass down? Because you have to understand the essence. And why I'm trying to show you this out here is, if anyone is from here, from Punjab, have you ever, and open the mute button and tell me, have you ever heard of the term called Jangam Yogis? Okay. ਜੰਗਮ ਜੋਗੀ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਨੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਪਿੰਡਾਂ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਅੱਜ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੈਵਾਈਟ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਕਾਲੇ ਕਾਲੇ ਕੱਪੜੇ ਪਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਐਂਡ ਦੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਸ਼ਿਵਾ ਦੇ ਉਹ ਪ੍ਰੇਜ਼ਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਗਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ ਸੋ ਵੈਨ ਵੀ ਵਰ ਫਿਲਮਿੰਗ ਆਊਟ ਹੇਅਰ ਇਨ ਹਿੰਗਲਾਜ ਦੇਰ ਇਜ਼ ਨਾਟ ਅ ਸਿੰਗਲ ਸਿੱਖ ਆਊਟ ਹੇਅਰ ਓਕੇ ਇਹ ਸ਼ਕਤੀ ਪੀਠ ਹੈਗਾ ਸ਼ੈਵਾਈਟ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਵੀ ਬੰਦੇ ਖਤਮ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਨੇ ਬਟ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਬੰਦਾ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਜੰਗਮ ਜੋਗੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਗਾ ਰਿਹਾ ਸੀਗਾ and listen to what he's talking about. The reason is, I'm not talking about Shaivite tradition. I'm just trying to show how complicated the things are. Not complicated, how intertwined things are. And we try and make them black and white. And the society is a shade of gray, right? So listen to this.
From Chandrakup, we proceed further to the Hinglaj temple. Hinglaj is situated on the west bank of the Aghor River in Balochistan, close to one of the mountains of the Makaran coastal range.
Listen to it now. Shaivite tradition, हिंगलाज पर चढ़ गई रानी, राइट एक ओंकार का भजन करंती ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕੋਈ ਠੇਕਾ ਲੈ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਇਹਦਾ sometimes we make it so hard and what formations we have created ਉੱਥੇ ਤੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਿਹਾ ਨਾ ਪਾਕਿਸਤਾਨ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਅਜੇ ਈਸਟ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਪਹੁੰਚਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਤੇ ਚੱਲ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਟ੍ਰੈਡੀਸ਼ਨ ਅਜੇ ਵੀ ਜੰਗਮ ਜੋਗੀ ਈਸਟ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਇੱਕ ਓਂਕਾਰ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਬੰਦ ਕਰ ਦਿੱਤਾ So where the cracks are, how it's happening, I think we need to open up. We need to look into shades of grey. Nanak Panth boda vadda siga. Nanak Panth is reduced today. Sometime we'll talk about Nanak Panthis, right? And there's a bigger tradition, this thing we'll talk about. That's a different topic altogether. But I'm coming back from a small deviation out here. Now the question then is, the topic was about think like a sage, act like a leader. I've just been building the base. Showed you about what leadership is, how we define it, what the oneness is. Because if you understood oneness, then the ethical leaderships will start coming up from there, right? So Guru Nanak di life to asi laiye. Dekho, for those who would have seen the docuseries and seen the episode 2, allegory is a metaphor. You're trying to solve for a metaphor. What we inherited was a narrative of tera, 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 tera. Now, we have to be very mindful of how we are telling the narrative. Idea is not to break other already a cracked society. If I start saying ki, oh yaar, tera, tera di saki sab bekar hai, people are going to actually not even look at the work that you're trying to do, right? The fact remains, when Guru Nanak is at the Modi Khana, yes, Anaj surplus which aaya, and he did distribute it. Now, whether the Anaj surplus which aaya Modi Khane vichon, because he was managing the grains, right? Did it come from a top down, from the heavens, or did it come from a philanthropic act? Janam Sakis talk about Mansian, who sees the ethical conduct of this storekeeper. He becomes the first person. We forget these things. We like to make these things that he suddenly goes inside the water and he vanishes for 3 days, right? Because there's a particular story we have to tell that he come back as an enlightened, right? We can talk about that separately. But ethical conduct, देखो इतनी बड़ी सी docu series बनाई है, I said in the beginning, we didn't have the money to make it, right? But some works you did, some people saw the merits. साढ़े लाइफ के अंदर पैरिश ठीक है, we never had a surplus. But your conduct resulted, your ethics resulted in some parachutes opening. Same thing happens in Nanak's life when he's sitting in the Modi Khana. He's doing an ethical practice. Mansiyan is the first person who realizes who he is, right? And if you understand the two and connect the dots, philanthropy starts from there. You don't want your children to be taught that something will come from a parachute and think of parachute खुलते नहीं, but ओ तेरा 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 हो रहा है, yes तेरा तेरा करके डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हैं, but अनाज किथों आ रहा है? The story is ethics, ethical practice. If you do the right thing, you will attract the energies that will give you enough surplus to distribute. If non-ethical, nothing will happen. Nanak is a social reformer. The stories we have to tell is about ethics. And I'm just going to, before I play this video, if anyone has a doubt, look at him going into the Vein Nadi. The tradition is some people will feel offended when you say, we're not saying he did not vanish or what. You see, try and connect the dots. The Janam Saki tradition says when he's at Sultanpur Lodi, he's in a state of vira. Vira is basically andro kuch cheez khich rahi hai unhanu. And he's in search for something. And the Janam Saki tradition says that he crosses the Vai river and he would go on the other side into the Shamshan Ghat and the Kabristan, and he would spend time there. And his father-in-law is getting disturbed about his condition. And he goes begging him to come back, right? And then the Shabad plays, Koi kahe bhutna, koi kahe betala. That's his words. He's saying, someone calls me a ghost, someone calls me out of tune from the world, right? But he's going through his own turmoils, which then takes him on this massive journey for 22 years. He's in search for some answers and experiential wisdom. And he's imparting and seeking also in this whole process, right? So, ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਵੇਈ ਨਦੀ ਦੇ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਨੇ, so we are not saying that he vanished or what. We are simply saying probably he may have crossed the river and gone the other side, because the narrative tells us he was doing that. Do we want to make people understand in your lives those situations will come when you will be torn apart? Life is not a bed of roses. Nanak was also torn apart. Do we want our youth to be taught that there's nothing wrong in being torn apart? Do we want to tell them about ethics? Or do we want to tell them कि तेरा तेरा हो रहा है बस? So let's listen to this.
As a youth, he held a seat of authority at the state granary, where he witnessed the immoral practices of society. For their selfish interests, the officials misused their power. The rich took advantage of their financial status, and the ones who suffered the consequences were the innocent and weaker sections of society. Guru Nanak warned that unchecked absolute power is corrupting. He reminded that compassion with honesty is the fulcrum for a fair and democratic society, which results in socio-economic equilibrium. Proficient in both his job and his knowledge of spirituality, he was respected as a hard-working, trustworthy, honest, and compassionate officer. A co-worker, threatened by Guru Nanak's popularity, made a false complaint to the authorities, accusing him of squandering state revenue. The governor ordered an audit of accounts and a tally of the stocks of grains. The appointed officers discovered that the accounts were in order and that there was actually a surplus of grains, which some citizens, following Guru Nanak's charitable conduct, had donated for distribution to the needy. This illustrates the idea that kindness begets goodness.
नानक आखे रे मनो सुनिए सिख सही
Nanak आंखें हे मना सुनिए सिख सही. Conscience is the ethical aspect. Do listen to your inner consciousness. No one's going to tell you what's right or wrong. I mean, you don't look put it this way. There's a law which tells you what, yeah, to see you've committed a crime or you've done something, someone passes judgment. Forget that what the law is telling you. Everyone in their conscience knows whether they did the right thing or the wrong thing in that moment. No one needs to tell anyone. You know it. You may put whatever face value to it, but everyone knows when a moment of truth comes, you know कि मैं ठीक कीता है कि गलत कीता है. And that's the ethical practice we're talking about. That's the self-empowered leadership that we're talking about, right? Self-actualization. It's a very old concept coming from the Indian subcontinent. What today in the MBA schools we talk as the Maslow's hierarchy, that you cannot think of higher things in life or the finer things of life unless your basics are satisfied. Roti, kapra, makan, if it's not satisfied, your mind will not thrive for something bigger. I couldn't have done any single body of these works if I wouldn't have toiled for that many years studying, excelling in my career, getting multiple degrees, having a successful career. Today, what I'm doing, that's why I told you beginning, don't leave your jobs. Prepare yourself in the moment. And I'll talk about towards the end of this, now just coming to an end, only 2, 3 more slides, right? That roti kapra makan you have to create for yourself, right? Thereafter, your self-actualization happened. But what are you doing with the roti kapra makan creation is where the problem is, that a lot of people are missing the plot in that moment. And I want to talk about, because that's what is going to make you actualize. Otherwise, actualization is also, hey, I've retired. I'm just going and eating, drinking, and I'm actually playing golf. That's not the self-actualization that these saints are concerned about. It's a wastage of life. It may be for someone, but not in my definition. That's not the self-actualization we're talking about, right? Self-actualization is much higher than that. So let's listen to this, what Tanna Sahib says. And this temple that you'll see inside this one is Tanna's temple in Rajasthan.
Psychologist Abraham Maslow's law of hierarchical needs states that one can only aspire to altruism if one's basic needs are first fulfilled. In humility, Bhagat Dhanna seeks the provider to take care of his basic needs so that he can peacefully devote himself to the service of others.
गोपाल तेरा आरता गोपाल तेरा आरता जो जन तुम्हारे भगत करते तिनके काज संवारता गो पैस मंगो लावेरी इकता जन तोरी चंगेरी कर की गीहन चंगे जन तन्ना लेवे मंगे.
To be able to serve at the broader level of the society, you need the basics to be satisfied. When Dhanna is asking for a Turkey Koda, it's like asking for a Ferrari, right? He's asking for not a good wife. Look at the words that translation we make. Give me a good wife. और फिर wife nu female nu good spouse ना मिले, good husband ना मिले. You're asking for a good spouse because both are humans. You all the Bhagats have spoken and written in the name of in a feminine soul, right? So if they talk, interpretations have to have the right words. You can't use "give me a good wife," which are translations in. You're asking for a good spouse because partnership is what is going to make you develop, right? He's asking for a very basic need of good cow in those days, right? To give the basic food elements, right? So you give me all this, and what's going to give you? It's not just you're going to ask, and there's an effort that has to be made for it. But he aspires for an actualization, but he's going to do something, right, to get that. Okay, now, so therefore, I started by saying what is self-empowered? Thinking like a sage, acting like a leader. So all these are elements of thinking like a sage that are bringing you here right till now. Now, Nanak's verse is what we're going to end with. I think you'll find this prerna in the episode number 23 or so, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think that's where it's going to come. Guru Nanak, in his travels, interestingly, by the way, I'll tell you, when you even look at the episode 20 on Afghanistan and other places, wherever there are Shaivite shrines in these areas, in the East Punjab, we've destroyed everything ourselves. So the narrative is totally distorted. But in places where our forefathers have left it, I can see it. Wherever there's a Shaivite shrine, Nanak's of Nath Panthis, the Shaivite shrines will, Nanak shrine will also be next to that as a memory. Because there were dialogues happening. You know, there is a saying in the Indic tradition nowadays कि गोरख धंधा कर रहा है. You must have heard of it, गोरख धंधा. Yes or no? गोरख धंधा कौन है? The people who were the followers of Nath Panthi, the Kanpatta Jogis, Guru Gorakhnath, Bhartarinath, Charpatnath, a big tradition. Somehow in our Gurdwaras, we have this tendency of demeaning. A lot of time as I was growing up as a kid, we try and show the other. Nanak did not demean anyone. He was having dialogues. There's a deeper essence out here. Nath Panthis was a big sect, a pinnacle of wisdom in the 10th century, which over the 500 years had come down to a deterioration. And therefore, Nanak is having dialogues with them. And when Nanak was born, we are 500 plus years from that time. And so, therefore, we are also in the path of deterioration. Because every 500 years, if you don't get your act together, deterioration happens. And that's why today, 1000 years after the Guru Gorakhnath, this term has come up, Gorakh Dhanda. Look, a pinnacle of a tradition today has become Gorakh Dhanda. If someone's in that guise, is seen as doing something negative. So I always often say that we as adherents of Nanak have to also get our act together. Because you are at the cusp point of 500 years. There is no inheritance out here. It's your acts which are going to define what your next generation is going to do. So Guru Nanak is talking about self-empowered leadership, and he goes to these communes of the various Nath yogis. Look at it interestingly. When you go to a country, like you go to US, you go to the immigration counter, the immigration officer is going to ask you, why have you come? Who are you? You know, various questions, can ask any question, right? If you don't answer, they will say, get out, man. I'm not going to give you a visa. So similar things happening out here. Nanak goes to a commune of the Nath yogis, and the Nath yogis ask him a very profound question. And it's a part of the Gorakh Bani, right? Of the Guru Granth Sahib. Tera kavan guru, jiska tu chela. Show me a passport, man. Who the hell are you, right? It's literally saying like that. Who are you? तेरा कौन गुरु है भाई तू मैनू दस तू किसदा चेला है before you come into my commune. Literally, it's like saying like that. And Guru Nanak gives a very profound answer. I will not say that, but I'll say it in the end after this thing.
Guru Nanak is an expression of divine wisdom. Who did Guru Nanak seek as his teacher, and whose disciple was he? Guru Nanak says, wisdom is the teacher and conscious introspection is the disciple.
इतनी गल समझ गए ना, that's it. That's self-empowered leadership. गुरु और चेला ਤੁਹਾਡੇ अंदर ही है. You are empowered to lead yourself. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕੋਈ ਆ ਕੇ ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਨਾਮ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਉਹ ਹੈ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਹੈ, ਗॉड ਉੱਥੇ ਬੈਠਾ ਹੈ ਉੱਥੇ ਕੀ ਹੈ, you are empowered to lead yourself. That's what he's saying. ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਨੂੰ ਪੁੱਛਿਆ ਤੇਰਾ ਕੌਣ ਗੁਰੂ ਜਿਸਕਾ ਤੂੰ ਚੇਲਾ? ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਹੈ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਗੁਰੂ, words of wisdom, experiential learning. ਸ਼ਬਦ ਤੇ experiential learning ਹੈ ਨਾ, is my guru. ਸੁਰਤ ਧੁਨ ਚੇਲਾ, ਮੇਰੇ ਅੰਦਰ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਕੌਨਸ਼ੀਅਸਨੈਸ ਹੈ ਨਾ, ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੇਤਨਤਾ जो सीख रही है वो चेला है. That's why Guru Nanak traveled. It's not for what we are telling as messages. That's what he traveled for. You are empowered to be your own guru because the chela is right on side also. Right? So that's the self-empowered leadership. So essentially the framework, ਜਿਹਨੂੰ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਕਿਰਤ ਕਰੋ, ਨਾਮ ਜਪੋ, ਵੰਡ ਛਕੋ. By the way, in doing the Guru Nanak docu-series, you'll find, Prerna will come to the 23rd episode, you'll find I've said the same thing. But you have to cut the corners to tell the narrative. But I can tell you the reality is, there is not a single Janam Sakhi tradition or anywhere in the Guru Granth Sahib, these three things are listed down like that, ki Guru Nanak said, kirat karo, vand chako, Naam Japo. No, as three things are not. They are great values. They are great values. No one's denying it. As a community, we have adopted it. No issues. I'm not trying to find any faults in this, right? But they are not, Guru Nanak has said this like a prescriptive thing. It's not like Moses giving you a tablet and saying this is what you have to do. That's where I have a question. I have an issue that we make it so prescriptive. And that's the issue. But it's a great value. But essentially, when you look at these people, what were they doing? They're earners, they're economic contributors. So they're talking about these saints as economic creation. You cannot be, if the reality is that everything is existing and world is transient and you have to be existing in it, you have to create economic value. You have to have fair earnings, ethical. Sharing is benevolence is required. And self-actualization, reflecting, developing, and motivating is an important part. Everyone in their careers, at some point, you start looking at giving back to the society. You become leaders, you become trainers. You will not keep earning at the same pace. At some pace, you have to actually take on the youngsters and handhold them. How will you reach that stage? Not everyone will reach there. But if you can reach there, you are the chosen ones. So reflecting, developing, and motivating your mindset has to go in there, right? And therefore, I just want to show this second last slide and bring it in. Just something that from my own life, I'll say. Look, on the top, there's one timeline, which is all throughout my life, I was doing education, bread and butter, yahi kar raha siga. At 60 years of age, also I could be simply doing this. But at 48 years, where the creating passion and the orange one just stops. I was 48 years. What I was doing all throughout my education time, no one knows my life at 17 years till 48 years, what I was doing. I was disoriented when I left the corporate world. That's fine. Jan Nanak ek khel kathan hai. I'm not a chosen one out here. Everyone is like going to go through their own turmoils. Their situation is very different, each one, right? But yet what you control is that from 17 years of age, unconsciously, I was not doing anything. I was not doing anything consciously. I was just doing in the moment what I felt was right. At 17 years of age, I started reading history. The next phase was something's happened in my life, right? वो कहते धन लिखे दुख दारू सुख रोग पे. At a very young age, certain life experiences happened in my life. I'll not get into all that, but to me, I always say dukh is not the material loss. Dukh is the internal state of dissatisfaction of where you are and where you want to be is creating a big turmoil. That is the dukh that Nanak is talking about. Dukh daru. Usi dukh vichon medicine bhi niklegi. Daru bhi niklegi. Daru is not your liquor, right? Daru is that medicine will also come out from there. It's a Persian word. Sukh rog, bhaya. If you're dissatisfaction, if you where you want to be and where you are, if both of the states are together, there's no gap in it, then that's a state of ecstasy, right? That will become a disease. Therefore, you go back to what I was earlier saying. Don't leave what you are doing. Continue to do. What you control is what you're doing, other than that, what you are doing as a day to day earning. The differentiation in today's world is not what you are earning day in, day out, and bringing to a family, feeding them, and feeling good about it. No one cares about it. You may care, your family may care. The world will not even remember you after you've left. World will remember what you've created for the society. And that can only happen when you develop yourself in phases. And what you're doing in my life, when I look at, I was delving into history, then I delved into philosophy. I didn't find an answer in that. I delved into many other philosophies and I kept my mind open. There came a time I became an atheist also, right? It's good to be an atheist. I have no qualms on saying, because atheism is also a philosophy. How would you know what's dark or what's light if you don't know what's dark? Or if you don't know what's light? You have to have a relative thing, right? It's a spectrum. There came a time I was so disillusioned that I found in Kabir's word, Khalak, Khalak, Khalak mein Khalik. And I said, creation is the creator, creator is the creation. What am I searching for? My own life's journeys were filled with tumults. No one knows that, right? And internally, I was very, very in a tumulted state, right? And at that point, when Kabir spoke to me, I picked up the camera and I started doing visual photography. Then I started writing for magazines. What I'm trying to tell you is that layers and layers. There was a time I was deep into musicology. I'm not a master in anything. I can tell you I can recognize the rags. I've done musicology to a large depth, but I still cannot sing because that's what's not supposed to be my life. When I look at it, all those skills over the last 17 years to 48 years have then suddenly unfurled at the stage when I left the corporate world, whether it was the mapping of the Sikh legacy remnants, where I started off from, or doing the Guru Nanak docu-series, multiple skills had to come together. Even corporate skills had to come together because you can't meander in today's socio-political, geopolitical situation without having those skills, without having the communication skills, without having even the ability to raise the funding to do these things. You cannot succeed. Now, when I put down this, people ask me, wow, so great, you are following your passion. I said, I am not following your passion, and don't follow your passion. It's a recipe for disaster. Do what you're doing. I'm creating passions. Creating passion follow the bahut zameen asmaan da farak hunda hai. Creating on the when you become the passion. So among the bread and butter in education, there's something that you're creating, and create that to the best of the ability, to the point that you get sick and tired in a few years of that passion, because then the next sapling will be growing right behind you. And you just need to turn around and pick up that sapling, and that'll be your next passion that you have to create. You have to create passions. You don't have to follow passions. It's the wrong advice that the corporate world gives. Follow your passion. You follow your passion, you not grow anywhere. Create your passions. You become the passion. And then you will find, just like breathing, it's happening. The purpose of your life is going to flower if it has to happen for you. Again, there's a big question, if it has to happen for you. And for me, my life, when I look at a sine curve, everyone's life is a sine curve. But I tell you, the most eureka moments happen at the lowest point of your life in the creative space. When everything is lost and everything is gone, everything is finished. If you've done the right things, your mental barrier will break at that lowest point of the sine curve, and you'll find the next purpose emerging. That's what has happened to me in my life. And I will simply end this by saying, keep moving, keep moving. This is Baba Farid's place, and we'll end here. Farida Toria Toria Ja, Kale Mande Kapde Kala Manda Base. It shows Kale Mande Kapde is not that mere kapde kale ne. The feeling, the outside, जो लोग देख रहे हैं जो मेरे दरवेश समझ रहे हैं reality is I'm all blackened like a coal and internally I'm all kind of I'm I'm no Superman. I'll put it on the other thing, right? I'm not elevated person. I am just like a normal human being, Farid is saying. But yet I need to keep walking. I need to keep walking. And when I look back in my life, I'm not neither any one of them. I was once presenting in Hyderabad, and this lady came to me. Probably she was elder to me also. And she touched my feet. To see Nanak Sahib da kita, right? Why are you touching my feet? You don't even know who I am. You don't even know who I am. I'm not a Baba out here. I didn't do it to actually get these accolades coming in. To see, dekho, to see, samjho, that's it. Leave me for who I am. I know who I am inside because it's all